Think about how we usually hear about military conflict. We get the headlines, we see the footage of missiles launching, we read the briefings from the Pentagon about the number of strikes and the immediate damage reports. It is a narrative of kinetic force, of explosions and visible destruction. But there is a quieter layer to this story that never makes the evening news. It is the layer of infrastructure degradation and psychological attrition that happens in the shadows. This is the hidden cost of modern asymmetric warfare. When we look at the conflict between Iran and United States forces in the region, we are looking at a war that is being fought on two fronts. One front is visible, the other is buried under layers of information control and strategic silence. Here is the thing that most public reports miss. There is a significant discrepancy between the official damage assessments and what internal military evaluations suggest. This suggests a systematic downplaying of the kinetic impact on United States infrastructure. The reason for this is not to hide incompetence, but to manage political fallout and avoid escalation triggers. If the public knew the full extent of the degradation, the pressure for a more aggressive response would be immense. Instead, the strategy has shifted toward deterrence. This shift is driven by the hidden costs of repairing extensive, unpublicized damage to critical assets. Now consider this. We often think of war as a series of battles. But in the modern era, war is also a war of information. During the confrontation period, there was a heavy reliance on internet shutdowns and censorship methods. These were not just about stopping the news from spreading. They created an information blackout that delayed public awareness of the true extent of the destruction. When you cut the digital lifeline of a region, you also cut the ability for independent observers to verify what is happening on the ground. This allows the narrative to be controlled by the state actors involved, ensuring that the full picture of damage remains obscured for as long as possible. There is also the matter of what we call open-source intelligence. Data from GitHub repositories tracking aerial warfare from 2024 to the present indicates a higher density of strikes on United States bases than officially acknowledged. This reveals a pattern of what can be called stealth or unreported collateral damage. These are not always massive craters. Sometimes they are the subtle failures of a power grid, the degradation of a runway surface, or the disruption of a communication node. These are the kinds of injuries that do not show up in a press release, but they accumulate over time. Imagine a house that takes a direct hit from a storm. You see the broken windows and the torn roof, but you do not see the water seeping into the foundation or the mold growing in the walls over the next few months. That is what this hidden damage looks like. It is structural. It affects the readiness of the forces stationed there. It forces a recalibration of how the military operates in that region. The reliance on these stealth tactics creates a recurring cycle where physical damage is verified only through satellite imagery long after the events occur. By the time the public sees the damage, the strategic window for immediate retaliation has closed. This leads us to the psychological aspect of the conflict. It is not just about the machines and the buildings, it is about the people who operate them. The constant threat of unseen degradation creates a state of attrition for the personnel. They know that their equipment is under stress. They know that the information they receive is incomplete. This creates a psychological burden that is just as damaging as a physical wound. It erodes confidence in the system. It forces commanders to plan for worst-case scenarios that are not officially acknowledged. This is a form of psychological attrition that accumulates over years, not days. The structural break caused by this conflict implies long-term consequences for United States military readiness in the region. These are driven by the hidden costs of repairing extensive, unpublicized damage to critical assets. When you add up the cost of repairs, the cost of lost time, and the cost of morale, the economic impact becomes significant. This is not just a matter of national defense, it is a matter of national economic stability. The confrontation with the West and the long-run economic and institutional fallout suggests that the cost of this hidden war is far higher than the official budget allocations. So why does the United States not escalate? Why does the strategy remain one of deterrence? Because the full extent of the damage is too dangerous to reveal. If you admit the level of degradation, you admit vulnerability, and if you admit vulnerability, you invite more attacks. So the strategy becomes one of containment. You fix the damage quietly. You adjust the posture. You signal strength without admitting weakness. This is a calculated risk. It assumes that the adversary will not push further if the cost of escalation is too high for them as well. This creates a new model of warfare. It is a model where the truth is the first casualty. The information blackout is not just a side effect of the fighting, it is a weapon in itself. By controlling the narrative, the attacking force can dictate the terms of the conflict. The United States can respond, but it must do so without revealing the full extent of the damage. This limits the scope of the response. It forces a negotiation of power that happens in the dark. The long-term consequence is a shift in how military readiness is measured. It is no longer just about the number of tanks or planes. It is about the resilience of the infrastructure. It is about the ability to repair damage without public scrutiny. This changes the way resources are allocated. It changes the way personnel are trained. It changes the way the military interacts with the public. The structural break in the relationship between the military and the public is permanent. Once you know that the official reports are incomplete, you can never go back to believing them fully. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.